don't put so much pressure on yourself to have everything and all the answers the first day. Just take it one step at a time and don't put too much pressure on yourself and have fun. Enjoy the journey.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Loki Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Juvel De Lima, and today we have a seasoned storyteller who has spent over 20 years in the television industry and has been running his own podcast, Marc My Words. For the past 5 years, Marc Schmidt is a podcast producer and host who dives deep into the journeys of entrepreneurs, focusing on those pivotal fork in the road moments that define their paths. Mark, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Yuval. How you doing today?
Yes. Yes, I am really glad that you are with me today. So, you spent over 2 decades in the television industry before starting your podcast, right? So, what inspired you to do podcasting and how has your background in TV influenced your approach to podcasting?
So the reason I got into podcasting is because I used to go to an event called LinkedIn Local in my local area in the Baltimore, Maryland area in the US. And people
Mm-hmm.
kept coming up to me and saying, you should make content, you should start a podcast. And I was like, So I thought about it, tried to come up with an idea because you want to have like a theme. You don't want to necessarily be too open ended. So after a while, I was like, why don't I just do a show dedicated to the people who inspired me, which were business owners and entrepreneurs. So I made a podcast based on that. And you know, just really my configuration is still very simple. I have a ring light, I have a mic, I have a podcast host, and from
Yes.
day one, just hit record. And I really my background has helped me because I at least know how to make the most out of a little bit. So it helps me with editing. It helps me to produce the most clear sound. Sound is really
Yes.
important, even in
Yes.
like video. So you can imagine how important I think it is for audio. But that long
Yes.
story short,
Yes. So, where do you produce your podcast, by the way?
Uh, so I produce on Podbean, and I don't know if I'm answering your question, but and you can re-ask me if I'm not. But basically, I produce it off of. So I use Zoom, I use Podbean, and
Yes.
I just hit record. After I'm done, I take the video and I just put it into iMovie. Like I'm not spending any money really, except on the podcast host. That's really it. So I gotta have the podcast host, but I'm still at a point where I'm like trying to grow and establish myself. I should also note, so something very important that I'm doing, like the past 3 or 4 years compared to like the first year or two, because the first year, much like you found me, you were like, oh, this guy, he seems friendly enough. He'll be
Yeah.
interesting, and we're connected on LinkedIn. So that's how you kind of like start, I feel. And then, so
Yes.
I graduated to like groups on Facebook where I found people who, like podcasting groups. Then a big game changer, I found Podmatch. So it's like dating for podcasters. You
Yes.
got to pay a few bucks a month, but you get linked up to guests who have similar interests, and I have found a ton of good guests, and it's really not. It's helped a lot with like the production value of the show for sure, and really like outside of that, it's like a very simple, production.
Yes. And I just recall what you said that I think we are just the same when we think of starting a podcast because me also when I decided to start this podcast I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to learn for someone else, because me, I wanted to become entrepreneur. I want to become a business owner, and I think the best way to do that, as I have watched some videos, that you must learn from someone who've been there. You must learn from those experiences, and yeah. So I am about to launch my first episode, and I'm really happy. And I got lined up of guests that's coming. But before that, I got to do a lot of work on the back, that I have a doubt on myself. Can I do that? I'm not really good at speaking in English. And if you saw my recent post, I just uh, tell there that I have a lot of doubt, because I am young. I don't really good at speaking. I am stuttering sometimes. And yeah, but I believe that if you do that, you will learn. Like what you said, you just did it because you want to learn from other people. And
Well,
also, you said your podcast, Mark My Word, focus on those life changing moments entrepreneurs face. Am I right?
yeah. So first of all, I just want to say, from my point of view, you're doing things in a very good way. I'm not going to say the right way because there's many different ways, but you're
Yes,
being very
exactly.
authentic. And for me, even though I have a background in television and have learned a lot about production, I still don't have all the answers. What do I know
Yeah.
about producing a podcast and doing this kind of production? And so a lot of what you just said, for me personally, I think is a great way to learn. And you're gonna have guests who you're gonna think are great guests, and then you're gonna be like, oh no, this is a mistake. It's probably going to happen. I hope it doesn't, but it's probably gonna happen. Something else is gonna come up. You're gonna or or as you pointed out, stutter.
Yes,
But that's
exactly.
okay. That's okay. And I think you're you're only gonna get better from here. And if you get worse, then you might have to reevaluate. But you have a great attitude, and I think you're only gonna get better. All you need to do is just keep going and keep learning. And like my YouTube page, a month or two ago, it was like, tumbleweeds in the desert, nothing really happening. I learned a few things and now it's starting to come along a little more. So you're going to just keep growing and learning and just focus on, what you're getting out of it and how it's making you feel, the connections that you're making,
Yes.
and just keep growing and learning. Like, I think you have a wonderful attitude.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And a lot of people say that also to me, because one of my clients said that I am very spirited person. That a lot of he's given me a lot of feedbacks about my work, and I just said, okay, let's do that, let's do this, let's do that. I get it done by this time, and so it's really flattening in my part, but I have a lot of pressure in me that sometimes I didn't voice it out, because the more people told that said that to me, I kind of my energy boost, even if I'm drained with my work, and sometimes with all of the feedbacks that it's given. And this podcast is really interesting, because you said, I think our podcasts have a in common. Like, I am my podcast is Loki Genius, as you know, and I am guesting people. I want to learn from people who are genius, because I believe everybody's a genius, and with because people have a lot, we have different expertise, and I believe we are all a genius in our field, but the purpose of this is to promote confidence to a lot of people, that whoever gonna watch this video, they might relate to my guest, that I am just like him, and I want to achieve something like him also. And something creating a podcast is like, also we have a purpose. because that keeps us going. If we have a purpose, because doing a podcast and producing it in your own is not really easy, but if you have a purpose, you keep going. You have a purpose of help, like you started Mark My Words because you have a purpose. You want to um to guest entrepreneurs, their life changing moments. And so the question here is, what's one of the most memorable fork in the road stories you've come across on your show?
Oh my goodness, how much time do we have? I mean, even though it's not what I would consider like a real like grassrootsy, bottom up. I mean, we all have to start somewhere, but I had
Yes.
Matthew Lesko on my show a few months ago. If you're familiar with him, he's like the question mark guy. He always wore the question mark suits on infomercials, and he was just the guy really loud, and he's like, I'm gonna save you money, and don't know if you're seeing that in your country, but he's of a person of note in this country, and he was just not really what I expected, but not just he's like in his 80s, super duper wise, just really cool, made me laugh the whole time, and he was just amazing. I had another guest who pretty wound up being pretty good friends with her. She started a business very young, like right out of high school, and her niche is to help young women become entrepreneurs, and she just blew me out of my seat. This was like when I was still starting out, and I'm just like, I can't believe there are people this young, like with this kind of attitude. Like, it's very inspiring. I love, it's not even so much having people who are notable. Sometimes the best guests are the ones who nobody knows, and they just are doing something really unique that is not
Yeah.
just like retail or finance. They're doing something like really different and doing something that inspires me. And those are the kind of guests I could sit here all day and talk about my guests. But yeah, the experience as a whole has just been amazing. Like, even doing this, I'm the guest, I'm gonna be energized the rest of the day because of just how this kind of conversation makes me feel. I love connecting with people, and
Yes.
that's a big part of what it's about. You talked about purpose, and that's one of the purposes for me, is to just connect and to help not only people get their word out there, but to get mine out as well, because I have a story that I feel is worth telling. So a lot of things energize me with this. I just love doing it.
Yes, and you will never expect the guess that you will gonna have. Sometimes you will gonna have that wow moment that, oh, I can't believe I am talking to this kind of person. Yeah, and you will never know the lessons that you will gonna get, and maybe they will give you some feedback or lessons that is for you. And that is really good that in doing podcast, we're gonna experience to talk to someone that is sometimes we cannot reach if we are not doing a podcast. Am I right?
Yeah. No, I love when people inspire me. And I love, so you want to talk about teaching your listeners and maybe even teaching you? Don't be afraid to be an example, and don't be afraid to not know. Like, my approach when I go into an episode, even as a guest, I'm like, I don't know anything, okay? As far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, you're the genius. You're even wearing the hat. So I'm I'm just here to be an example and to learn and to spread my knowledge and wisdom, I guess. But I love
Yes,
when
exactly.
I have a guest they're like an expert in something, and they have like maybe a text on a website or whatever, and I become an example to them. And some people might not be comfortable with that, but I love that
Yeah.
because not only do I learn something new, but hopefully by being an example and like, quote unquote getting called out or whatever the case is, people will learn something.
Yes, definitely. People will always learn something from us. We will never know. And you said you've been podcasting for 5 years now. How has Mark My Words evolved since you first started, and what are some key lessons you've learned along the way?
Well, first of all, I have an intro and an outro. So the first year of it, the first season, I didn't have like an intro or an outro. So it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. At first, it's like,
Yes.
okay, I have the mic, I have the ring light, I have the podcast host to, actually put it out there in the world with the feed, the XML feed. So I have that stuff. And then it's like, okay, am I going to like podcasting? Is this something that I want to do? Who wants to be on it? Who do I know who wants to be on it that can make me
Yes.
feel comfortable to start out? So that was like the first year. Then after that, I was like, okay, I need to branch out a little bit. It can't just be all people that I know or friends with or whatever. I want to expand and meet different people. So I did that. That was great. And then along the way, I'm like, how can I produce it better? So it's basically, just building along the way. Like I'm not necessarily trying to, become viral off of the first episode. It's a process.
Yes, exactly. It's a process. And you will get better. You will get better. Your episodes will get better. Your setup will get better as long as you do it. And you will realize that, oh, and then in the first episode, you watched your first episode and you said that I have to remove this and I have to improve this part. And you the next episodes you're gonna do that. Yeah. And
Well, also, one thing that's important, have somebody who's like a friend or somebody that you really trust to listen to some of your episodes so they can say, stop swinging around in your seat. Like I have a habit of swinging around in my seat. And my wife, she was like, don't do that. Because I not only is it an audio podcast, it's a video podcast. So I'm swinging around and listening. And she was like, yeah, stop doing that. Stop, try to stop. I don't even remember what I was doing, like maybe umming and all those little filler things that we tend to do sometimes. So I've tried to do better with that, although I have caught myself saying so a lot. So I gotta see it right there. I gotta try to stop saying so. But I mean, yeah, it's just basically you're learning as you go, and you're just you gotta almost have a conversation with yourself and say, okay, I've done this. How else can I grow? Like I'm just gonna jump to now, where I figured out that you can be YouTube verified, not just putting your video content on YouTube on your channel, but you can verify yourself and verify your podcast. So that can be on YouTube as an actual verified podcast. And from there, I was like, okay, what else can I do with this? So pay attention to people who email you. You may not always want their services, but they'll be like, yeah, you're missing keywords, you're not using the tags, you're not
yeah.
oh, you're not like what was the other thing? Like you're not setting up the chapters. You're not timestamping. That's what it's called. And I can help you timestamp. One person was very nice and did an example of their work. And looking it over, I was like, oh, I can do this. So I've
Yes.
started timestamping because apparently that helps with engagement. So it's just don't put so much pressure on yourself to have everything and all the answers
Yes,
the first day.
exactly.
Unless you're like a billionaire, there's some people who have a lot of money behind them. And hey, that's cool. They probably have a lot of people on their team, maybe people they don't even know that are on their team. So just take it one step at a time and don't put too much pressure on yourself and have fun. Enjoy the journey.
Yes, and you don't need to be expert on something before you start. And because it's podcasting, you can improve along the way. And you don't need to be like you are really good at speaking. You can be really good at producing, because along the way you will gonna learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So by the way,
And no,
yes,
after
please.
you, go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanna ask if you are repurposing your episodes for social media contents.
That's one thing that it's almost like you can't do it all. So I'm probably not a good example in this way. So I've started creating a lot of shorts that I've been posting to my YouTube channel. I'm very
Yes.
bad at posting the shorts and the updates on social media. I probably need to invest in like a scheduler because I do it very
Yes.
spotty. I love using the stories, like just quickly going, okay, I did this today, I did that. But as far as like posting on social media, that's something that I could be doing a little bit better, and it's something I'm emphasizing, I'm trying to work on it, but
Yes.
it's all a process.
Yeah, it's a process, and you can count me on that part. And I have clients that I'm helping with podcasting, and also this is one of my reasons starting podcast. I'm helping them with their podcasts, all from getting their clients to producing their episodes to repurposing their contents. Like one episode good for 1 month content for social media. Yeah,
That's
that's why
awesome.
from clips, yeah, from clips, infographics, blog posts, newsletters from one episode, we can get a lot of topics from that, and we can repurpose that into social media contents. And yeah, that is a good way in getting more reach in creating a podcast. And also I have a team right now that is helping me with this, um because I am planning to repurpose also this episode. And my first episode I sent her the created assets. Like one episode I created like four blog posts, I think 10 10 clips, six infographics, tweet threads, carousels. And she said she can't believe it that it can be that much for one episode. And she said that we are going to repurpose that. And yeah, and she can believe it that it can be happen, because she is struggling on getting a lot of reach for her podcast. And she believed that doing the repurposing, it can be a good way to get more reach for your podcast, to drive traffic to your YouTube or to your website, to your Spotify, or you if you have a Apple podcast. Yeah, it can be a great drive traffic to your full video. Am I right? And last question for you. Some of our listeners might just start or started their podcasting journey like me. What advice would you give to us who want to create a meaningful and impactful podcast? As you are right there, you're already doing this for 5 years. Just give me some tips.
That's a loaded question. So
Yeah.
I it is. I could take up your whole day on this, but I think so. Being prepared and studying your guests ahead of time can help really make it meaningful. I think again, some of the things I talked about, like don't be afraid to be an example. If you have a guest who has something on their media kit or on their website or in their social media that, you know, they're relying on to teach people and to get people engaged in what they do, use that to your advantage. Use everything all the materials that you can find on your guests to your advantage. Prepare, at least know something about the guests. Ask them ask them questions about, just their journey, and just
Yes.
really, really listen. Listening is a huge part because you think podcasting is talking, and we're both talking, but we're both listening too. Keep
Yes.
your ear out for something that you think will resonate with not only your guests but your listeners as well, and try to pick up on that key point, because that's how you can keep a really good organic conversation like this going, rather than hitting a point where you're like, I don't know what to say, and you have dead air, and you're like, I'm gonna have to like edit this, and I'm sorry, I'm a doofus, and yeah, it can really go downhill fast if you're not prepared and listening. And I think those are probably the keys, that are to just be prepared, listen to your guests, study up on them, and have fun. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, because
Yes.
although it's a business and you're trying to be a business, it's also fun. So don't forget that
Yes,
podcasting is
exactly.
fun too.
If you're going to do podcasts, you must do it with a heart. Like you are just talking to someone else that you want to learn from them, and you're just a cultural conversation that you want to ask something that you want to know.
Right, yeah. And that's really what it comes down to. Either you want to educate your audience, or you want to teach them something. You want to like maybe teach them how to do something, or you just want them to walk away with something tangible that they can take with them in life and go forward. Where
Yes.
I think my podcast, it's not so much, okay, I learned how to do this or that, but maybe I learned something about myself by listening to the guest story, and that's kind of more what I'm hoping to deliver with my show. But if you have a niche, if you know how to do something, if you're learning how to do something, I think one thing you're doing that's amazing is like, look, I've never done a podcast, and I just want to talk to people who do podcasts, and I'm gonna learn, and just you're like an example for everybody, which is that's so perfect. That's a great approach, because it's like, again, there's a lot of people that are like, I have a show, and I'm just this week I'm gonna talk to a chef. Next week I'm gonna talk about football or whatever, and there's no direction. There's some people who do that. Maybe they have some success, but I don't think that's the right approach. I think what you're doing, and hopefully what I'm doing, is a good approach, because we have a niche. Having a niche is very
Yes.
important.
Yes, having a niche is very important. So you have a specific audience that will gonna come back to you. You wanna listen to your podcast. That this podcast is for me because I am learning something from the things that I am interested about.
Right. And so through you, other people will learn. Because even though I've been doing this for 5 years, I'm learning from you just by being a guest. Because I think your approach and just what your goal is, and this is great. Like, I think this is fantastic. I think this is a wonderful idea for a show.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And also, I appreciate your tips. I learned from that also. And that is something I need to improve also because since I am just starting, a lot of things I am noticing in myself when I'm watching the video that I need to improve this. I need to improve this because even right now, I am like, I'm in doubt. And also, I kind of shaky. I can't explain it because you know, it's my first time, but I believe if I can keep continuing doing this, I will improve in the better for to be better in the next couple of episodes. And This if people want to know more about you, Mark, where they can find you.
Well, first of all, you're doing a fantastic job. So part of the fun in podcasting is also being our authentic self. And
Yes, thank
I
you so
think
much.
everything that I'm seeing and what you're doing is great. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think self improvement, like I'm still trying to improve, but you're doing great. And I just wanted to put that out there before I actually answer your question, which is telling everybody how they can find me. So I am on social media at uh, Instagram. You can find me at just Marc Schmidt, Nimrod79. So I'm a big Green Day fan. I've had that handle for a long time. So if you find me at Nimrod79 or Marc My Words 6, that's the Marc My Words page, you can find me there. You can find me just as Marc Schmidt on LinkedIn. I post a lot, or I should be. I'm a little back and forth on that, but I'm engaged. I'm on it a lot, so you can find me there. I like to go live, so you may catch me go live talking about my stuff. You can find my podcast pretty much everywhere on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, uh, most places that you can find podcasts. It's spelled Marc MARC My Words. So I'm one of the weird ones that spell their name MARC. And then I also have a YouTube channel that I'm really trying to build up more in 2025. I'm at Marc My Words 3008. So that's Marc MARC My Words 3008. That's the name they gave me. It's not really the name I wanted, but that's the name I got. And that's how you can find me. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, people. If you want to know more about Mark, he is almost in every social platform, so you can find him easily. So thank you so much, guys. Who to all who watching this video. I hope you all have a great day and God bless you all.